and they're into the stretch, and Frosted yet to be let loose here. He is still in hand as they come into the final furlong. Joel Rosario's not even asking him to go at all. He's in front by 2.5 lengths. And then comes F&X on the outside. A late bid from Comfort down toward the rail. It's Upstart. But Frosted has won with ease in the Whitney.
This is Saratoga track announcer Larry Colmus, and you're listening to the Paddock Pass on 104.5 The Team.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of the Paddock Pass. This is the 4-Star Dave / Arlington Million Paddock Pass, and we are lucky enough today to be joined by Todd Schrupp of TVG. He's going to be live from the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club in California. And, of course, this past week was a great weekend at Saratoga and other places, as well as Frosted takes down the Whitney at Saratoga. And that was one of the more impressive races I've seen in a long time. We will cover that. We will go over Beholder. Will she run next weekend in the Pacific Classic? Also, big news out of the Lady Eli camp. She's looking on track for the Boston Spa later in the meet. Also, the Woodbine Mile is the next spot for Champion Tepin. And, of course, we will give you winners for this weekend's Arlington Million. Thank you, of course, for joining us. Hit me up on Twitter at 1045 Mariano. Of course, we do picks every day on 1045theteam.com. Having a decent meet right now, just over 33%. Taking down Mike James today. We got about a 5-win lead, but today could change things as there's sloppy conditions out at the track on this Wednesday. Thank you, of course, for joining us. We will move on. This past weekend was a huge weekend. I was there to see the wonderful performance that Frosted put on in the Whitney, and that was one of the performances that could go down in Whitney Lure. Of course, Moreno a few years ago holding off foes. It was just really interesting to see. Joel didn't really do much of anything on Frosted, and I was a little worried. I was skeptical. I was sitting with a few friends of mine watching the race, and when you see fractions such as 23-1 and 46-2 over 1 1/8 on the Saratoga track, that it really can be speed favoring in the sprint races, can take a toll on someone like it did American Pharoah last year in the Travers. But as they turned for home and you realize Joel had a firm hold of Frosted, that this race was definitely over at the half-mile pole. Joel, what a great ride on Frosted. This horse is going to be looking forward to maybe will be looking to add to another Breeders' Cup Classic that's probably shaping up to be the best one ever. If Beholder stays healthy, she could be in there. California Chrome, Frosted. California Chrome and Frosted, that seems to be the talk of the week. Who is better? I guess it depends on who you ask, West Coast or East Coast. We will mention it to Todd Schrupp and see who he thinks it is. My opinion right now, Frosted isn't quite there yet. I know that he won the Met Mile in a romping condition. I know that he absolutely destroyed him in the Whitney this past weekend. But the real question is going to come down to, can he maintain that speed over 1.25 miles against better horses? I really don't know if that's going to be the case. I've yet to be proven wrong with that. He tried to push American Pharoah last year in the Travers over 1.25 miles, faded back to third. Anything over, the 1.5 miles at Belmont was kind of I'm going to sit right off of American Pharoah and take my second place and see who can run the fastest quarter mile. We obviously saw how that played out. I don't know if Frosted and Joel Rosario can actually sit a trip that will be able to beat the likes of California Chrome. Even Dortmund. Dortmund is, beat him in the Kentucky Derby last year. Is coming off a long layoff, ran really well in the San Diego against California Chrome, almost beat him, and now we'll come back and we'll see how that plays out as these prep races lead towards the ultimate prize, which is the Breeders' Cup Classic at the end of the year. Thank you, of course, for joining us. I am your host, Brian Mariano, and we're going to move on to some other news to where the Arlington Million is the big, the place to be this weekend. Chad Brown sends one out in the Arlington Million. I was shocked to only see one horse running in this race because it seems to be, a mile and a quarter turf race seems to be right up Chad's alley. I'm pretty shocked that there's only one, even though this horse is very, very good. Wake Forest for Chad Brown. Flavion Pratt rides the number 10 horse in the Arlington Million. Now, the Pizza Man is in as well. He is 10-1, Mike Smith aboard. But the question really is, can the Pizza Man find the same form he did, last year when he won this race? Because he seems to be a little off in his last few. The two horses that seem to going to be bet will be the Mark Casse World Approval on the outside, the number 11 for Florent Giroux, and then a Godolphin Racing Tryster right outside of him with William Buick. So really what we're looking at here is a lot of these dominating turf trainers all coming at once in this race. I'm still going to give Chad a shot here with this Wake Forest. Ran really well at Belmont Park and seems to be working towards improving. So I wouldn't throw this horse out, but my pick is going to be Mark Casse's World Approval. Horse looks really sharp right now. Florent Giroux is one of the best money riders out there. And luckily enough, we have been lucky to see him at Saratoga. He's had a pretty rough meet so far, but when the big money's on the line, Florent Giroux knows how to ride, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him around as well. So if you're going to play this race, if you're playing pick fours, I at least would go 3 deep, go with the outside horses 10, 11, and 12, and then I would probably play exactas with the 10, 11, and 12 as well. So make sure you throw those wagers in. That race is scheduled to go off at 6:09 on Saturday, but of course, we will be at the track on Saturday for the 4-Star Dave. That race seems to be shaping up as one of the better ones of the weekend as well. And depending on the rain will depend on how this race is going to be run. Because, of course, this being a turf race, we'll see how it plays out. But a mile on the inner turf, I like a lot in this race. Chad Brown for Javier Castellano. It seems like a lot of Chad's horses stayed for this race. Right outside of him, Takeover Target, who won at Belmont Park last time out. King Creesa as well for David Donk. Force the Pass for Alan Goldberg and Jose Ortiz. This seems to be one of the deeper races of the day. So it isn't one of those where we had the Whitney this past weekend where you could easily single, move on, and then hopefully hit anything late. So in this race, I'm going to end up taking Takeover Target and a lot as the two horses I like on top. If you're playing exactas and triples as well, I would involve King Creesa. I would involve Force the Pass as the other ones to go here. So 4 deep there if you're going to play pick fours. And of course, this weekend I will have a pick 4 ticket out for you. Mike James, shout out to him. Last weekend tried to play against Frosted. Unfortunately, didn't work for him. He played him in our picks and is unfortunately a little bit behind as we look at the races today. It's been pretty sloppy out there, and there's been some prices to go with it. So hopefully Mike can get back off the schneid. Next week we will have a star-studded show for you. We are hoping to get Brian Bouye, the communications director at the National Racing Hall of Fame. He has a new book out. We'll tell you everything about that as well. We're going to look to get Andrew Champagne of TVG to join us, and of course the new full-time race caller from Gulfstream Park, Peter Aiello, will join the program as well. This weekend is going to be a huge weekend. We're going to be lucky enough to now, the phone is ringing, and we are lucky enough to be joined by Todd Schrupp of TVG. Todd, thanks for giving us the time today, man. How's everything?
Brian, right back at you. I appreciate you making time for me. I mean, look, it's 77 degrees. I'm standing in the paddock at the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, and it's another gorgeous day. I mean, summer is just a phenomenal time, as you know, in horse racing. Now I'm just hoping that I get it right at the windows today.
I hear you. I've been doing halfway decent at the Saratoga meet. I'm right around 33% for the meet, but haven't been lucky enough to hit many pick fours. I've been trying to follow you guys out there. You and Simon and Paulie been doing halfway decent on the pick fours, huh?
Yeah, Paulie's been doing really good, and Simon's gotten kind of beach ball hot the last couple of weeks. It took some getting used to. The main track was definitely a speed-biased racetrack to start. The turf course, they had made a few adjustments, and ultimately, I think, kind of getting used to how that turf course plays has been part of the learning curve. So we're kind of hitting our groove right now. It's a good time as we get to the second half of both those meets.
Sounds good, Todd. Now, before we look forward to this weekend, we'll go back to last weekend. Frosted put on another stunning performance in the Whitney. Now, my question to you is, Todd, is he on the same level as a California Chrome right now?
Well, it's funny because you talk to people in your time zone, and they don't think California Chrome's on the same level of Frosted. It really has become an East Coast, West Coast rivalry. I'm not ready to declare that it's easy goer in Sunday silence, but the loyalties definitely decide and fall whatever side of the Mississippi that you're on. Most people walked away from the Frosted performance in the Whitney and said, oh, he's absolutely the best horse in America. And I thought, okay, so the Dubai World Cup does not count. My colleague, Matt Carruthers, who you had on many times, talked about Frosted's ability to ship and how that makes him so great. He shipped to Parks. That's as far west as he's gone to win a race. Is he brilliant? Of course he is, to be able to pull off the Met Mile and the Whitney. But I'm not really ready to say he's going to usurp the horse that just absolutely dominated him in the Dubai World Cup in California Chrome. California Chrome had a fight last time out in the San Diego Handicap with Dortmund, but it was also a race where he was coming back from Dubai, and I think he was still a little bit short in his training. He's going to get better as they go longer. Looking forward to him, obviously, in the TVG Pacific Classic, no matter who he takes on. But the idea of seeing Frosted against California Chrome is absolutely the matchup everybody wants to see sometime in the fall. And I would say at this point, the 1.25 miles is the separator. And for me, that's still in California Chrome's favor. So I still have California Chrome slightly Frosted, but I like the fact that you said is Frosted up to California Chrome, because it was amazing to watch the Twitterverse go off the charts after the Whitney and everyone declaring Frosted's far and away better than California Chrome. And let's not talk about what happened in March.
It's amazing how quickly we forget in the horse racing industry and how current we are to watch how Frosted wins the Whitney this past weekend. And like you were saying, we forget how California Chrome ran in Dubai and how well he, kind of fought off Dortmund in his prior races. Now, I think you were spot on there, Todd. I think the difference is definitely the extra quarter mile, because Frosted's speed can probably hold up for that 1.25 miles, but the 1.25 miles seemed to be the distance not only that he was trouble with American Pharoah, but maybe even someone just as good as a California Chrome or even Beholder if he sees him later down the line.
Well, I agree with you completely, and I'm not opposed to speed at 1.25 miles, but you have to be a really good horse. You also have to fight off probably challenges early on. And if we're essentially looking at this matchup taking place in the Breeders' Cup Classic, the idea that Frosted would just go out there and waltz on the lead, I just don't think is going to happen. In a race like that, he's going to get a challenge. So he'll get that challenge early, and then he'd have to deal with California Chrome late. Now, with our industry, you just cross your fingers and hope that everybody stays healthy and that matchup could eventually happen. But if the question is 1.25 miles, level weights, in his backyard, let's remember, this is California Chrome's backyard and Frosted coming all the way out here, it's still going to be California Chrome's advantage. But if you want to talk middle of the country, 1.8 miles, yeah, that's a more intriguing proposition. And Frosted's tactical nature, his ability to get on the lead and go 9 and change like he did in the Whitney, absolutely makes the difference when we put California Chrome up against it.
Now, Todd, I was a little bit unlucky as we were talking about playing pick 4s and pick 5s earlier in the interview, but I was unlucky the day that Beholder ran in the Clement Hirsch because I had her singled in that race and unfortunately hit the other 3 legs and didn't get her home. Richard Mandela seems very hesitant about bringing Beholder to the Pacific Classic next weekend. What are you hearing out there in Del Mar? What exactly are they talking about out there?
Well, first of all, she had a brilliant work this morning. She went 5 furlongs and 59 and change breezing. So she looks like her old self. And to be honest with you, in the paddock that day, not a lot of people were saying it because everyone was kind of caught up in the moment, even I. But when she came by before the Clement Hirsch, I don't know, she just didn't look like she was ready to go out there and run her race. I think this last workout is a better indication. So the connections came out and said they're now leaning towards the TVG Pacific Classic. The one thing about Dick Mandela, you're never going to force him to say anything any earlier than he wants to. I mean, they could let this play out up until it's time for the post position draw, or at least an indication who's actually going to go for the post position draw. His quote early on after she lost the Clement Hirsch was, "I tried the TVG Pacific Classic last year because everything went perfect. Obviously, today, everything did not go perfect when she lost in the Clement Hirsch. But I think realistically, you've got to let horses have an off day. It goes back to what you were talking about, how one tour de force can influence people and how they view the rest of the division. All of a sudden, Frosted's leapfrogging everybody because of his back-to-back wins, and deservedly so. He's put together a resume. But it also works the other way. When a horse loses unexpectedly, all of a sudden we question their ability to begin with and where are they at in their form cycle. But the bottom line is one of the best races I witnessed in person for TVG in all my years, probably top 20, was her performance in the TVG Pacific Classic last year. beating the boys. It was the best performance of her career, and it made me think that she could beat American Pharoah if she had made it to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Yes, it's disappointing she lost to Clement Hirsch, but I think the connections are just kind of absorbing what's happened and now watching her in the mornings and realizing that she's coming back to form, and why not take a shot? It would be fantastic to see her against California Chrome, and obviously, the forgotten horse and all of that would be Dortmund coming out of the San Diego Handicap. So it's shaping up to be a tremendous TVG Pacific Classic, but would be all that much better if the connections of Beholder follow through and enter her.
So now, Todd, my question would be, would this be the key prep race for the Breeders' Cup Classic if she were to run? Is this the deepest field that we would see before the Breeders' Cup Classic?
No doubt. I mean, they paint the Awesome Again at Santa Anita as a traditional Breeders' Cup prep, and that's true. Some horses will go there. A good example would be Melatonin. Melatonin, would sit back and kind of see what happens here, who ultimately enters the TVG Pacific Classic. But in a scenario where you've got a Beholder, a California Chrome, and you've got a Dortmund, there's no reason the connections of Melatonin would ever want to go into that situation. So they would wait for the Awesome Again. But the Awesome Again will not have the depth, will obviously not be conducted at 1.25 miles as this race will be. Yeah, this is going to be the deepest field and could potentially be, if all three horses go, or if just the main two combatants go, California Chrome and Beholder, it could be the race of the year before the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Of course, you can follow Todd on Twitter at ToddTVG. Now, Todd, my question is, Champion Tepin will now skip the Boston Spa at Saratoga, so we were unlucky enough to be able to see her run at all, and she'll make her next start at the Woodbine Mile next month. Why the extra time?
Well, here's the thing. We talk so much about coming back from Dubai. I think one of the bigger recoveries is Royal Ascot. When you show up there in June, that really sets back the rest of your season when you come back to the United States. I think they were being optimistic, and they were actually trying to make that race at Saratoga. But ultimately, if you think about where they came from and going to Royal Berkshire and then coming back here to the States and up to Saratoga, I think that was asking too much, and that's where they ultimately went. To make the race in September, to end up at Woodbine, it's also a perfect scenario for her as far as the weather, and I think that turf course is ideal. I mean, the bottom line is Tepin could win anywhere in the world, and she's shown that. But I always felt that it would be quite a reach for her to actually end up coming back at Saratoga. I feel for the fans there, and I do think there was a very forthright effort to make it happen. But ultimately, that's the right decision to wait till Woodbine and give her that extra time.
Now, Todd, Arlington seems to be the place to go this weekend. You have the Arlington Million with the defending champion, the Pizza Man. Chad Brown sends Wake Forest out with Flavien Prat to ride. Now, I have two questions here. Are you shocked that Flavian's getting rides like this in such big races, being, mainly from Southern California? And are you surprised that Chad only sent one horse to this race?
It's a very good second point. Yeah, I am surprised because Chad Brown could look up and down. He could fill half the starting gate in the Arlington Million if he wanted to, but there's also more opportunities for the rest of the season, especially up in New York. And to be honest with you, I think the horse he's sending might just absolutely be enough. The Pizza Man's form is the Pizza Man's form. He's not what he once was, and so it's a great story that he gets to come back and defend his title, but ultimately I don't think he can win this race. As far as Flavien Prat, it has really been amazing to watch the genesis of this rider and the way he has evolved since coming to Southern California. There's a guy that Chicago racing fans will be familiar with who now operates on a national stage, and that is Florent Geroux. I think Florent Geroux and Flavien Prat are very similar, not only because of where they hail from originally, but just in their career arc and how much they've improved in such a short amount of time, and now they get these national opportunities. Flavien Prat is for real. This is not a guy who's all of a sudden started climbing up in Southern California and people are going to just take a shot and bring him in for big races. This is a guy who is absolutely going to supplant Rafael Bejarano consistently in the jockey standings here. And Rafael Bejarano, since Joel Rosario left many moons ago, has essentially far and away wrapped up the title almost every meet. But Flavien Prat's a true challenge to him, and Flavien Prat is a true talent that could take his talent anywhere, and people are going to see that. And Chad Brown is one of those guys who will go anywhere for a good rider, and he's got a very good one at Flavien Prat.
A lot of the guys around here, Todd, wouldn't believe me about Florent Giroux because he's one that you would see a lot, like you would see a Ryan Moore during Breeders' Cup time, and you'd recognize him then. But now that he's riding full-time at Saratoga, they really am starting to see how good he is, even though he's not having the greatest of meets, only has 3 wins, but he's still one of the great riders, in my opinion, and now I think a lot of the people in the Saratoga region are starting to see that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, look, when you're going to Saratoga full-time, kind of for the first time, it's going to be a slow beginning. But he has shown the flashes of what he's capable of. And Kate Bradar, who works for TVG, her husband, Doug, is his longtime jockey agent. So I've kind of had some insight into what type of person Florent Giroux is, and he's the complete package. He's got the right demeanor. He's got the right mentality. And just jockeys have to sell themselves, too. No matter how good they are, there's that moment in the paddock when you're getting instructions and meeting the owners that can make the difference as to whether or not you're going to get that mount back next time out, regardless of what you do on the racetrack. And so he's got all of that. And, the slow start at Saratoga notwithstanding, people get to see that Florent Giroux is absolutely capable.
Todd, I appreciate you taking the time, man. I know you guys are crazy busy out there at Del Mar. If the 518 is listening, they'll definitely be listening to you and Simon Bray's picks out of Del Mar. Thanks again for giving us the time.
Hey, Brian, my only regret to this meet is that I'm not going to be able to get up to Saratoga this summer. I really wanted to be there. This whole idea, what's the better summer racetrack, Del Mar or Saratoga, it's not even a debate because they're great experiences in their own right. And I miss the fact that I won't get to Saratoga this year. So you hit a few pick 4s on my behalf, okay?
I'll do what I can, Todd. I'm unlucky enough to not be out there, where the turf meets the surf to see you guys out there at Del Mar. But if you guys ever come east, feel free to get a hold of me and we'll meet up for a beer or two.
Absolutely. I plan on it.
All right, Todd. Thanks again, man.
Take care.
There he goes, Todd Schrupp. Todd, thanks again. Of course, this weekend, big weekend with the Arlington Million and the 4-Star Dave. Best of luck to all you guys out there betting. We'll give you some pick 4s as well. And, of course, if you see me up at the track, say hi. I'm the only bald guy, as Levac and Wolf like to joke with me. Stop by and say hi when we're up there every Fridays. I'm on at 2:15, and you can check out Capital Region Sports Saturday every Saturday, at 9:45. I'll be on with Brady Farkas. And, of course, good luck this weekend, and we'll see you at the paddock.